Good morning, everyone. I hope this video finds you well. Today, I want to talk a little bit about news. I'm an avid consumer of news, but over the years, I have dropped and abandoned my traditional news sources. These sources, for the longest time, were showing bias, so I dropped them. I, who had been conservative on some views, liberal on other views, libertarian on many views, socialist on some views, I was very, very turned off, disturbed by the biased reporting, so I would stop reading these news items. And that became true for just about everybody in the mainstream who used the mainstream media, because they were no longer objective. They were just providing distorted pictures. And so you turned to other sources. If you were an American and you were more conservative of bent, you would go to Fox News. And if you were more liberal bent, you would read Politico and some of these other websites. Since I moved to China, even these alternative websites started to develop a bias. This became particularly true during the Trump administration, where they started maintaining a very anti-China screed. It was pretty bad, but then they started funding it. If you said the bad things about China, you started getting millions of dollars. And after those bills were passed in the budget appropriations, a number of major American news outlets suddenly blocked their access from China. So suddenly I couldn't view Yahoo News and others. I would have to use a VPN to check it out. And there, when I checked it out, sure as shit, they were just pumping out the most outrageous lies. I mean, this wasn't just a distortion of the truth. This wasn't finger picking certain items and omitting others. No, this was just an absolute lie, just a complete fabrication lie. And so, we knew, it's well known on the internet how CNN would lie. They would construct a mob and then film this mob and create actors and have actors to do something and write a news story around it. So, but what had happened over the years was something even more insidious. They have become propaganda pieces for the American oligarchy, not even the American government, the American oligarchy. And it's been getting pretty bad. The alternative sources have themselves been corrupted over the years. I used to be a 20-year member of Free Republic. 20,000 articles, for God's sakes. And then one day it was erased. They just erased it because I was reporting on what was going on in Hong Kong, seeing that it's right there. And they said they're not going to, they don't accept my point of view and will not tolerate me saying anything good about China. I'm gone. Erased. Everything about me erased. This was done by some of the people who work in there, and I'm sure that Jim Robinson was surprised, because I was a long time contributor, a major contributor. But hey, that's life. I haven't gone back. I haven't looked back. Every now and then, I'll go check it out just to see what kind of bullshit's going on and see what's happening there. It's pretty much a compromised site. Um, I don't know the full story behind it. I know that they have always been a site espousing the um, conservative libertarian wing of American society, but that they were targeted by trolls early on, and there were trolls that just parked themselves there whose sole role is to disrupt the flow of communication, comments on the articles. That's all they do. They just sit there. And there's two particular ones. There's a few others, but there's two particular ones. And that's it for Free Republic. You see, it would have disturbed me if I would think that this was the job of the community to provide news, comment, and allow people free communication. But it became obvious to me that that was not the case. By the time life moved me away from following that as a news medium, I realized that many news organizations had balkanized. You were either a neocon, a Trumpster, a bidden person, a progressive, a social justice warrior that had fractured into different parts everywhere. And you just needed to find the part that appealed to you. And, but still, even with that, I still believed that certain stalwarts could not be thwarted, that would forever exist with some degree of journalistic integrity. New York Times, Sydney Morning Herald, but it became clear to me that they were all compromised because all of them were money-making organizations, and the United States government was paying enormous amounts of money to control what they say. So for the longest time, I and many other people were used to pick and choose. We had to read the articles judiciously, recognize that they all had biases, and be very careful walking through this minefield of bullshit articles and finding glimmers of things that are actually occurring. And other people started doing that and putting them on blogs. So the rise of blogs, news blogs, or political blogs, became known as alt media, alternative media, of which Drudge probably was one of the first, but of course it's right now owned and is all owned by neoconservatives right now. They spout to the neoconservative line, which isn't even conservative at all. It's feudal fascist on methamphetamines. Feudal fascism on methamphetamines. That's what that's the belief out of the Washington D.C. today. They are fucking nuts. They're a rabid dog. And those of us who are aware of what's going on are scared shitless for it. But this is the subject about news. And so yesterday, I'm going through my feed, and one of the articles was posted on my email, and it's an Australian article. And it says, okay, Xi Jinping called an emergency meeting to discuss decline in manufacturing and food shortages because of the tough coronavirus restrictions that China has. I was like, damn, really? And then it says, and this was all taken from a Global Times article. I was like, shit, Global Times is in English. I'll just go to Global Times. I looked for it. I could not find it. I looked and looked and looked. I couldn't find it. So I asked my friends, can you find the article that talks about this emergency meeting talking about these issues? And so they looked for me. Couldn't find it. I said, shit. So I got my staff. I said, find the goddamn article. There's no article. So I went through the Australian article, who was quoting from a CNN article. And they're listing all kinds of stuff. Oh, and then experts say this and experts say that, and it's because of this. And then they go through this big spiel about the terrible overreaction that China did on coronavirus. Goddamn. All bullshit. Doesn't exist. Didn't happen. There was no emergency meeting. And you're going to be seeing more and more of these articles. Because somehow they've got this image that they're trying to promote, that China has overreacted, and that is causing a collapse of the Chinese economy and a collapse of Chinese manufacturing and disgruntled Chinese people. The truth of the matter is, people in China are okay. Everything's going fine. There are tough coronavirus restrictions. There's no question at all about that. Whoa, hold on, Nelly. The strangest thing has just happened. All internet is down. I have a very strong signal. It's all down. Darn thing. Wonder what's going on. I can't even get my local Chinese sites. Very odd. Moving on about news. So, the thing is with news is that it's all compromised, it's all lies. It's designed to extract responses. And as we have discussed in Vault 7, they control you. And that's where all the rage and anger is coming from. This abnormal rage and anger. Part of it is generational turnings, but a lot of it is absolute frustration and manipulation by others using Vault 7 algorithms. Something's just going on right now. I'm going to have to interrupt my discussion about news. So this discussion is going to be partly news and partly internet. Something happened. Something catastrophic just happened on my internet. It's not local. It's a major down. Strange ass thing. All right. Anyways, strange ass thing. So, moving on to news. If you don't have news, you don't have any idea what's going on. So you have to accept whatever news you can get. And so a lot of us read whatever news we can get. And then we have to decipher through it. And a lot of times it's very frustrating because we just catch the out and out lies. And that's very disturbing to us. You have a situation now where in this event, for me, my internet is down, and it's not local, and it's not a node. It's something big, just white screens. So if I want to get news, I would have to go ahead and get a newspaper, except there's no newspapers anymore. It's all electronic. So if the internet goes down, people, you're not back to 1980. You're back to 1776. Get no information at all. Maybe the world will be a quieter and better place, huh? Have you ever thought that? Have you ever thought of that? Has it ever occurred to you, like it is right now for me, that everything is white screens? Nothing's churning, nothing's going on, nothing's happening? Have you ever thought of the consequences of what it would be like? Yeah. Strange, huh? I argue that we're entering a new phase of this war, of World War III. I, for the longest time, have argued that World War III was biological war and an information war designed to realign the world in America's favor, rebuild America's world so that the America runs the world and it all operates for them. The rest of the nations serve America. Yes, master. Yes, master. You laugh about that? That's exactly what the neocons want. And we're seeing global realignments to fit that. Disturbing things. All of a sudden, a democracy election. An election in democracy puts a radical pro-American president in there, and the population's like, huh? Him? This guy who only had 6% of the vote is now president? Because of the democracy, the voting. Looks like it happened in Korea. Looks like it happened in Australia. Looks like it happened in Pakistan. Certainly happened in Taiwan. Certainly happened in Ukraine. Yeah, pretty weird, huh? Looking at Korea, this is a recent election. It's not being reported very well. Korea is an interesting spot. The best thing for Koreans, South Korea, when I talk about Koreans, I'm talking about South Korea. The best thing for South Korea to do is try to remain as neutral as possible and as friendly as possible to its neighbors. Who are its neighbors? North Korea, China, and Russia. And then Japan way over there. Those are its neighbors. But instead, the president decides to get really close to the United States, which is way, way, way over there. Don't worry, the United States will protect you. Let's put our nuclear bombs there. So if this president, I'm going to call him like this president of Korea is smart, he'd try to play a fine balancing game trying to please everybody, just to keep his little tiny nation afloat. Latching on to America is the last thing that he should do, you would think. But no, that's what he's doing. So now he's deciding to choose sides. Korea's deciding to choose sides. Well, China can say, you know what? You want to be with the United States? Fine. We're just going to support North Korea when it takes you over. And Russia says, fine, I'm going to support North Korea as well. And then suddenly you have this world. North Korea is surrounded now with a ferocious bear, an enormous North Korean army, and a ferocious panda dragon. And America's going, go ahead. We'll give you lots of guns and lots of money. Go ahead. Fight them, fight them. We'll give you money. Here, money, 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 money. Right? That's the situation, huh? And it's amazing to me that none of this is being reported in the West. None of this is being reported in the Western news. Who figures? And so, news, people, is just, and you guys know this, I don't think there's anybody who really believes the news. The problem is it's insidious. If you don't know any better, you will believe the news because you'll think that, well, I don't really believe this news, but this part about China, well, we know China's really bad. I know China's really bad. So therefore, shema, shema, shema. Anyways, it looks like my internet's back up. That was damn weird. But look, the news. Anything you're not an expert at, if you don't see physically with your own two eyes, you have to assume it's bullshit. Everything. For me, reports out of the United States sound incredulous to me. I left the United States about 20 years ago. I cannot imagine 10 cities of unemployed workers and workers' age. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine storefronts being boarded up downtown in huge cities like Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco. I can't imagine it. But I see pictures, and I'm wondering, well, maybe, they just take one side street, and then they blow it out to the whole thing. I can't imagine that that's the case. And then I read things about social justice warriors and BLM, and it seems like they're taking these small isolated things and blowing them way out of proportion. I can't believe that all of American society has gone LGBT. I can't believe it, but apparently, I'm seeing pictures of these rainbow flags all on all these houses down the street. Well, maybe it's just in certain areas. So you have to take what you read with a grain of salt because it may not be true. And that's especially true with China because we know that there's billions of dollars funding an anti-China narrative. And I can read the articles and I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Yeah, well, it's a DEFCON. China is in a defense a war posture. We're all testing and everything. I'll give you an example. I was going to go to a factory yesterday, and my chief engineer, he says, don't go with me. I'll just go myself. I says, why? He says, look, by us leaving our area to go to that factory over there, we go from area 1 to area 2. That changes our status on our QR codes, the access codes for permit us to walk around all over the place, and it goes to orange, which means that he will have to take mouth swabs for full spectrum. We call it coronavirus mouth swabs, but it's really full spectrum mouth swabs, and he'll have to have that every other day, like what we had here in Wuhan, and he says he doesn't want me to do that because if I have to do it, my whole family has to do it, and he didn't want that to do it. So I said, fine. It's a hassle, but you do it. You live with it. It's not that bad. It doesn't destroy manufacturing. It's not causing people to riot or anything. You just alter your lifestyle to fit. I've got a brother-in-law. He's still locked in his apartment in Shanghai. It's 2 solid months work, moving on the 3rd month now. Does he want to go out and live life again? Yes, he does. Is he screaming and hollering about it? No, he isn't. You have to accept things as they actually are, but it's not being reported that way. None of the news is being reported that way. None of it. Zero. None of it. It's really bad. And, they report on other things. And I'm getting various reports from all sides about the Ukraine. And I tend to believe the side that says that Russia's winning, simply because, number one, I know that before the war happened that the Ukrainians and the United States were making fake videos. I even wrote about that. So I know that there's a propaganda onslaught prepared before a war. Number two, I've never been to Ukraine, so I really don't know. But I'd gravitate to what I can find. And some of these reports in favor of the Ukrainians winning things, it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. How can a side with no air superiority exist against one that does have air superiority? Okay? So you have to do some sanity checks on some of this stuff, and then you derive your belief. You have to drive your belief structure and use that to navigate through all this bullshit. And there's a lot of bullshit out there. And that's how you do it. Some things are a mystery to me. I lived in Australia for a spell. I love Australia. I think Australia is the shit. And I mean that in a very, very good way. It's so bad it's good. Or it's so good it's bad. It's the shit. But, so you get this guy, this Morrison in there, and he just completely wrecks the economy. He fucks up. Australia's been a kind of quiet regional neighbor on track to become the major Pacific player in the Pacific. And he decides to he decides to be fucked by Uncle Sam. And he's loving it. He's saying, fuck me more in the ass. Fuck me more in the ass. And Uncle Sam is just really reaming him, grabbing him hard and thumping, humping him like he's a more. Jesus H. Christ. Finally, they got rid of this jackass. And the new guy they got says he's going to do things differently. And what's the first thing he does? He says, well, I'm going to continue Morrison's policies. Guys, the purpose of democracy, the way democracy works, is if you don't like one guy, you vote him out, and you get another guy that has his policies he promises. That's the way democracies work. If it doesn't work that way, you don't have a democracy. You have a dictatorship. One person makes the rules. Anyways, in regards to the news from the States, because after all, I'm American, I used to live there, and certain things that I read about, I can well understand. I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania, and this was 50, 60 years ago back then, guys. They didn't care. Money went to fix roads, repair potholes, repair bridges. Nothing was ever done. So I can see that happening. But man, if it wasn't done 60 years ago, I can't imagine what it must be like right now. It must be particularly bad. And the reports I'm reading say that indeed it is particularly bad. In fact, I heard that there was a bridge collapse in Pittsburgh on a bidden visit, for God's sakes. So some things I can understand, but other things I can't. And I have to take it as a grain of salt. I mean, for instance, this diversity officer bullshit. Have you looked at the salaries of these people on LinkedIn? They're making $400,000, $500,000 a year. Qualifications must be a minority, color of skin issue. Must have a certificate. That's it. And they direct the behaviors of these people in this corporate environment, lording over people. Have you looked at these diversity officers? Have you talked to them? Now, I hear from people who have commented that they say that for most of their companies, it's just an appointed person who has another job, and they do a diversity officer role as a side, because apparently there's some kind of diversity initiative where you have to have a diversity officer if you're so big. This is mind-boggling to me. Mind-boggling. But all indications seem to point that that's the case. So, what's true or what's not, it's really hard to tell. You have to have personal experience to know. I've never been to the UK. I don't know. Man, I tell you, I'd love to go to Scotland. Would like to check out Ireland. I know I would want to go check out some of the scenes in in and around England. I know that is something I would really like to do. I think it'd be really cool, actually. Some of the stuff I'm hearing out of England with pros and cons of Brexit and the government and all this stuff is like, jeez, I can't even understand the damn thing. And the decisions being made by Europe right now, really. It's hard for me to get a handle because I haven't really been there. So you really have to be very judicious. But there is one thing that's different between reporting on news in the United States and reporting on news in China. News on China is funded to be negative. Billions of dollars to reporting organizations to say bad things. Where in the United States, they just report it and not get any extra money. That's the fundamental difference. Any news that you get that is intentionally funded to be propagandized or disinformation, you have to say it's garbage and tear it up. You have to throw it away. And that's just the way it works. You need to start doing that. All news with China is bullshit. And that's probably why there was this big group of video bloggers that says, hey, look, I'm showing you the way my life is. You don't like it? Tough titties. And then the BBC, funded by the U.S. government, of course, made an expose about this one particular blogger and then used the gray filter to show how dark and gloomy China is. It's like, Jesus H. Christ. Go on Google, do a Google search. Type in China cities. Ugly, disgusting, whatever. Type in China dogs. Ugly, terrible things. Type in China skies. Just polluted, everything. Because it does the image searches based upon the major networks primarily, because they have the money and the resources to handle the SEO searching components for these images. Just tells you how bad it is. They're getting more sophisticated, and you got to really go in depth. But what they're trying to do is generally, it's all pretty obvious. They're on a warm footing, and they're going to isolate China. They believe they're going to put an iron curtain around China and Russia. And then China and Russia is going to collapse while the rest of the world prospers in the arms and the benevolent arms of the United States. No, I don't think so. But that's the narrative, and the people who are living and eating their caviar and being served by servants believe so. And these oligarchs, that's what they believe. Of course, they're all shitting their pants right now because of the situation, and it is falling apart amongst their faces, and they don't know what to do. So they are on some kind of let's just go for broke. Let's just go for broke. People, they are dangerous. Going for broke means a lot of death and destruction, but that's their belief. Yeah, I tell you what. Phooey. Anyways, the point that I want to make here is that something you should already know. News is there's a lot of bullshit out there. You have to be super judicious, super careful of what you see. It has ratcheted up to a point where it's no longer simple distortions. It's fabricated nonsense. And it's not just the realm of the Falun Gong with the Epoch Times, all right? It's no longer made up bullshit and distortions by people who have a beef against China. It's just by major news organizations. New York Times, New York Post, Wall Street Journal, The Economist, large stalwarts of the news industry are now just fabricating lies and writing articles about their fabrications. You all need to be aware of that, because not only is all of America's systems falling apart and decaying, but the news system is also in free fall. It's all going away. The leadership in the West, the leadership in the United States are just falling in free fall right now, and they're going for broke. We're on the cusp. Things are going to start happening rapidly. Be advised of that. Take that as you will, in whatever form you may think. And people, your survival and your happiness depends on your actions right now. Do your best. Be part of your community. Make sure you strive. Show kindness and be helpful. Now's the time. And you know why? I believe in you.